Jed, I wanted to circle back with you about the shooting percentage, and you mentioned the 1 for 20 from 3 against Tennessee on the 5th, and then last night 4 for 27. Do you think that with Tom Crean's fast pace of play, where he's a little bit more lenient with the shots, that this is a team that is basically set up to take 25 to 30 3-pointers a game, and whether they make 5 or 15, Crean is going to go with his guys are eventually going to make him at some point, and that's going to help lead this team? Because you guys talked about Crump a little bit. First 3-pointer he made, he pulled up from way behind the line, and it rattled in. And like you said, wasn't necessarily the smartest basketball shot to some bystanders, and then he comes down next possession, tries the same shot on the other side, ends up 1 for 6 from behind the line in the game. So to me, I see ultimate confidence in Tom Crean and his guys letting it go, and that he thinks that they'll eventually fall at some point. But it seems like that's a little bit of pressure for this Georgia team when you take 57 shots, I think, 27 of them are from behind the line.
First of all, Tyree Crump always just makes me laugh when I watch, because you can tell he's one of those guys where you can tell he's about to launch.
He's ready, yeah.
I said it last night during the game when the second after he made that one and he came down again. I leaned over to another one of our basketball beat writers, Michael Abear, and I was like, he's about to pull this. Just watch, and he just launches one that clanks off the rim, and I was like, yep, that's Tyree Crump. But going back to confidence, I think that is, I think whether they, like you say, whether they go in or not, Crean wants his guys playing fast, getting up threes, really just getting good shots, whether they're threes or not. He mentioned last night, looking back to last year, he has to kind of think at times that this team, I think he said we're 326th in the country in three-point shooting percentage. And while he doesn't, but he also said that he doesn't coach them like that. He wants them to come down and shoot. He wants them to play fast. And he said, it's part of it is technique. He's mentioned a lot of times that there's footwork involved, with the way he wants to play, stepping into shots and things like that. But I think, like you said, they're taking the shots I think he wants. They're just not going in right now. And I think part of that plays into recruiting. Once he gets guys that maybe fit his system more and maybe are more, I guess, I don't know, they're better three-point shooters maybe. Because you look at it right now, Tyree Crump is probably the best pure three-point shooter on this team. But as you mentioned a lot, this is turned into the Tyree Crump hour, I think. But he's very streaky, but then there's not one guy like when you look at Kentucky last night with Tyler Hero. He's a guy who knocks down threes at a fairly consistent rate, and Georgia just doesn't really have that guy.
Yeah. I think it goes back to the talent and the specialists and the guys that they're recruiting in. Obviously he's inheriting Fox's team right there, but I guess in terms of the talent-wise, what was it? Crean spoke after the game, kind of talking back about Hagen's and like the recruiting and the whole aspect of it. We want to build a program, and we're gonna get those guys. That's what he kept saying for Georgia. Mm-hmm. So as far as that goes, like, do you think? Obviously in college sports, recruiting-wise, but do you think he's got enough in the state to be able to do that?
I think so, because I think basketball is different than football in the fact that it just takes that one guy.
Yeah,
Collin mentioned a little bit earlier.
Well, you see the NBA and the 3-4 superstars, Golden State, and then run the league.
Like, I've watched several Kentucky games this year, even before last night. Every time I do, I watch Ashton Hagans play, and I think, how much different would this Georgia team be with Ashton Hagans, consistently running the point, as opposed to, Turtle Jackson and T-Shawn Hightower. And that's not to say that those guys are terrible players, but Ashton Hagans is just on a different level. To pair him with Rayshawn Hammonds at the 3 and Nicholas Claxton at the 5, and then Derek Ogbeide has improved offensively this year. It only takes that one guy. Ashton Hagans could have been that guy this year, but he wasn't. But when you think about it, that just means
you got to go get the next guy. You got to get the next guy.
The one guy next year, and that could change everything. So I think.
Well, do you think that makes it desirable for players knowing that they can come here and almost 5 stars basically coming in and basically being the guy on campus for this team?
I think so. I think you just need to find that recruit who wants. And generally this is probably going to be an in-state kid when you think of this mindset, but you want a kid who wants to come here and build something. That wants to be a part of the team that turns Georgia basketball back around. And like I said, that's generally probably going to be an in-state kid that maybe knows Georgia basketball or something like that. But it's those kids that Crean needs, and then those kids that he's probably going after.
Yeah, well, Crean's got this larger-than-life personality anyways. I don't know.
Yes,
as far as you're around him all the time.
He likes to talk.
Yeah, I was about to say, more than anything, I refer to him as a waterfall of motivation, just constantly spewing whenever you speak to him, or like even when he's out here like giving out pizza to the students, he's shaking everyone's hand. He's the man of the people. So, but everyone kind of like, what are y'all's all thoughts so far of Crean, like his personality, like the job he's done at bringing people out? I mean, you have to at least admit that he's revamped this program. And the biggest, and like he's always, hyping up the student section after the games, thanking them for coming out, things like that. So as far as the personality-wise, on top of that.
Well, I think that's what I was going to say. He's gotten people to fill the seats. I think the next 7 home games are sold out for Georgia. There were just a handful of home conference games that weren't sold out. The Vanderbilt game last week, 2,000 allotted student seats, 2,700 show up. They get in, nearly fill Stegman to capacity. There's a game against UMass, who, by all means, no disrespect to the Minutemen, are not a high-caliber opponent to come in over winter break.
Yeah.
Stegman, again, almost full to capacity. And so I think Tom Crean's done a good job at getting out in the public, particularly with the student body. Like you said, handing out pizza. Right at the beginning of the semester, he did a segment for one of his shows inside of the Bolton Dining Commons right here across the street. And so I think students love that. It was right before classes started back up, I want to say at the beginning of last week. So I think he's done a really good job at kind of engaging with the student body, putting it out there, hey, we love the support. We're glad you guys are coming out there. And then yesterday, I was at Stegman in the first few minutes of the game when Jed mentioned 5 dunks or whatever that number was in the first few minutes for Georgia. The place was rocking. Students on their feet, yelling, right, heckling, doing whatever they could to try and give.
At least some of them.
At least some of them.
I saw you weren't.
And trying to give Georgia any sort of advantage that the students could. But you look up, and Kentucky was just very tight-knit, and it's a close game down the stretch. And I think Jed's mentioned it. You've mentioned it. Collin's touched on it a little bit. He knows the team isn't there yet, but that he's setting him up in the long term to try and get the guys in, and whether that takes one really good player staying in state to try and turn the program around, or just being more tight-knit and taking 33s, knocking down 10 of them instead of 4. Another thing, last night, team goes 11 of 16 at the free throw line, and a lot of them in the second half when guys are trying to make this an 8-9 point game, and it's big points. Georgia shoots 72.3% of the line on the year. Last night at 68%. Kentucky on the other side goes 9 for 11. So I think Crean's done a good job at kind of getting the fans engaged, but he knows there's a lot of loose ends that the team can tie up. Georgia as a team finished 13th out of 14th in the preseason SEC poll. Right now they're a little bit ahead pace of that, and game against Florida this weekend. Texas comes to town next weekend.
It seems like at that point when you're naming off, they're just waiting for that signature win.
Right,
That's what you're waiting for at this point. And I don't think Tom Crean's had it quite yet.
And it's not a given that it's going to come. But, the preseason, this was semi-expected. You saw they were predicted to finish 13th in the SEC. Georgia couldn't score last year with Yante Maton on the roster as complete an offensive forward as you're going to find in college football. Basketball, excuse me, not football.
No, don't worry. We'll get to the college football.
We'll get to the football, but
I know you love it.
Yeah, so the offense was always going to be a struggle for this team, and it was going to take huge strides from young players for them to be a good offensive team. You've seen good strides from Rayshawn Hammonds and Nicholas Claxton. They're just not as consistent. So, those guys I think are going to be pivotal. Those type of guys, you see the tools, but they're not necessarily the blue chip talent. Those guys you've got to develop over the course of 3 and 4 years. So these 5-star guys, they don't stay most of the time.
No,
you can get them there, but they're one and done. You've seen that model at Vanderbilt with Bryce Drew, and what's Vanderbilt doing right now? They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
LSU's doing the same thing. Is LSU making waves? Yeah, they're recruiting at a high level, but they're not keeping guys there to develop and sustain. That's how you make a great program. Duke has mastered the one and done. Kentucky has mastered the one and done. Yeah. That's not the blueprint for everyone. That's not the blueprint at Georgia. That's not the blueprint at Georgia. You've got to get those guys are the cherry on the top. So when they come, you got to have infrastructure in place for them to succeed. If Ashton Higgins is at Georgia this year, I don't think he's playing at this level because he's not in a position to succeed.